Hi, people. This is DJ.
This is Ish.
And this is
Season
3
3
of
Pero
Let Me Tell You.
I have no idea why. Right now, running through my head is the end song from the first High School Musical.
I don't know that song.
We're all in this together. La, na,
And together
na,
we're
na,
forever. I
na,
just
na,
made that up.
na, 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 na. Don't know why.
Well, on that note, let's start episode 99. How is everybody?
Well, you know,
99.
It's Pero Friday, and we are all in this together.
99 episodes.
Ooh, we got one more.
I got 99 problems about a podcasting one.
Well, it depends on the day.
Yeah.
This has been a particularly busy week for us.
It has.
In a good way. In a good way.
So let's just disclose it now. And welcome everybody to episode 99.
99, yes.
Happy Friday. Happy Pero Friday.
Happy Pero Friday. It's we're a week away from our 100th episode.
So let's just put it out there.
The elephant
now.
in the room.
The elephant in the room. So we have something special planned for our 100th episode. It's
But
just not going to be
the
on our
100th
100th episode.
Yeah.
Because due to different commitments that we have with people we've interviewed or are going to interview and different
scheduling conflicts
that we have. Mira, pero let me
Look
tell
at us,
you
we have scheduling conflicts.
Mira pa
¿Qué nos
eso.
iba a decir 3 años atrás?
That we were going to have scheduling conflicts. And due to some scheduling conflicts, as well as some personal commitments, we are not able to do for our 100th episode
What we'd like to.
what we want to do for our 100th episode. So we're probably going to have our 100th episode celebration in either episode 102 or 103.
In true Miami fashion, tarde.
Fashionably late.
Nada llega a tiempo.
So we are going to have it. And
Yes.
it's going to be a lot of fun. We are certainly going to have it. But it's just not going to be on the 100th episode.
It's not going to be the 100th episode. But, I mean, we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. We're going to have you more information about the 100 asterisk episode, kind of celebration, whatever.
But there will be something.
There will be something.
be
I mean,
something.
as we said last week, we're going to be at Carnaval on the Mile, March 7th and 8th. We're actually doing something with we're not going to reveal too much yet, but we're doing something with the youth fair. Well, they don't call themselves the youth fair anymore.
Oh my God, we sound like celebrities when they go on
they're the
talk
fair.
shows. Oh yes, I'm doing a
things to
movie.
plug.
I'm doing a movie with so and so, but I can't talk about it.
We have no, because I haven't finalized the details yet. That's why I don't want.
Yeah, Meryl Streep is coming on, pero let me tell you, but we can't talk about it.
She probably speaks Spanish better than us.
She probably does.
She probably does. She can do anything.
Like she could probably do every single accent there is of
In
Spanish,
all Spanish-speaking countries.
Like you want
all of them.
Uruguay? Okay, Uruguay. Here you go, Meryl.
Yeah, and she would choose to do a
You want
Uruguayan
Argentina?
accent
Here
from
you go,
some
Meryl.
town on top of a mountain somewhere.
Yes, from a little pueblo
remote,
in
like
somewhere.
12 people live there.
Yeah, it's I could speak that, Meryl.
Of course I can. I'm Meryl Streep.
So yes, we
there's-
have
yep.
a lot of fun things ahead.
Yeah, we
so
got a bonus episode coming up this week.
Yes, actually, let's talk about the bonus episode now.
Abso-friggin-lutely.
So let's just get all this out of the way.
Let's
So,
housekeeping.
as you guys know, one of the things that we pride ourselves the most is that we drop a new episode every Friday, and we're very proud that in the 2 years we've been doing this, we've been
consistent.
super consistent.
We figured out a way to do it.
Personal and professional.
Be damned.
Personal, professional. Scheduling conflicts.
yes.
Despite of.
Yeah.
But we're actually going to have a bonus episode that's going to drop on Tuesday, correct?
Yes, it is.
Because we have so much content and so much stuff that we want to share with you about Carnaval and about Carnival
some really cool
on the Mile
people.
and just things that we really want to talk to you guys about. That it's not gonna fit in one episode. Right. So unless our episode is 3 hours long, and no, we're not gonna do that. So we thought it would be great if we have a bonus episode where you guys can just the whole theme is going to be of Carnaval and the origins of it and what it means and the different people involved in it, from the artists to the musicians. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep.
And that's going to drop on Tuesday.
Yes.
So you're going to get double the pleasure, double the fun with Pero Let Me Tell You.
And Carnaval. I don't know. I could have figured out. But yeah, it's going to be it's really going to be heavy on interviews that episode. It's just talking to some people who are involved with the festival, with the Carnaval. And, again, hopefully we'll get to see you guys at the actual Carnaval. You've got 2 days to see us.
Yes.
We're
We're going to be on Carnival on the Mile, it's
on March 7th and 8th, Saturday and Sunday.
And we're going to be, I believe, in the intersection of Ponce and Miracle.
Ponce y la algo.
So we're going to be literally in the middle of it.
Como siempre, metido en medio.
And we're going to have our own little booth. So please come by and say hello. We're going to have some merch.
We're going to be interviewing some people.
We're going to have a new t-shirt that we're going to reveal for Carnival on the Mile. So we're really excited about all that stuff. So again, a lot of things happening. This is why we can't have a 100th
I know. This is why, because we got so many things. It's like, oh, by the way, at this point, we haven't picked it yet, but congratulations to the winner of the Cork and Fork tickets, the 2 tickets to Cork and Fork. You will have been notified by the time you hear this.
Yes, you will have been notified.
We haven't picked you yet,
they will be joining us at Cork and Fork.
There will be, we have tickets to Cork and Fork as well. We'll be there and come by afterwards to say hi.
So I don't know, maybe we're like at episode 105 and we're
like, damn it, we still haven't celebrated our 100th
episode. Pero bueno, let's get into our scheduled
episode 99. Let's focus on 99.
So, ¿qué tú me dices a mí?
Ay, Dios mío. Es que ya sé dónde va esto y me tiene engrifado.
Perro comunista, como dice my dad.
Roberto, is that
El
you?
Perro comunista.
I just felt like the soul of your father coursed through this room.
Perro. Well, you know what my father said about him? Because when he said the whole thing about Fidel, my father actually gave a very good answer, very composed. He's like...
When he said it this week.
We'll get to it now. He's like, are you surprised? He's never denied who he is.
This is true.
I mean,
this is true, and so I go ahead and
I mean,
we've spoken about this before.
So yes, we have spoken about it before. So as many of you may know, earlier this week, actually it was last Sunday, on 60 Minutes, Bernie Sanders stated that. That Fidel, Cuba was an authoritative government.
They revisited previous comments that he had made.
Which I think we had talked about here on the show. Mm-hmm. In 1985, he made a comment to Newsweek magazine, and this is on the record, that he was surprised that the administration at that time, which would have been the Reagan administration, was taken aback at the failure of being able to remove Fidel Castro from power, because what the Americans did not figure at that time was that Cubans loved Fidel because he changed society. He taught them how to read.
I love that they keep coming back to that.
Changed healthcare, and they loved him. Right. And you know what? I also take insult in that, because whoever says that makes it sound like if Cuba was like a wild, like a wild pack of animals,
like cavemen,
before the revolution,
and he's Prometheus, and Castro was Prometheus who brought fire to the masses.
He taught people how to read and write. Like if Cuba was an island of analfabeto.
Exactly.
So anyway, he said that in '85, and now, and like everything on because of YouTube and all that, this had resurfaced. Right. Although you heard it here on Pero Let Me Tell You,
heard it here first.
A few weeks ago that we had talked about it.
We scooped Anderson Cooper.
We scooped the Cooper.
We scooped the coop.
We scooped the coop. Anyway, this week on 60 Minutes, Anderson Cooper revisited that statement, and Bernie Sanders said that
he stood by his statement.
He said that yes, Fidel Castro was not a good guy. He was an authoritative government. You can't deny. But
there were some good people.
You can't deny that he taught Cuba how to read, and literacy is good. And just because Fidel Castro did it doesn't mean that it's bad.
Right.
That was on Sunday. Either on Monday or on Tuesday, he was doing a CNN town hall.
Okay.
And the moderator, I believe it was Monday, the next day, the moderator asked him, "Hey, you got a lot of crap from what you said on CNN on 60 Minutes last night about Cuba.
Care to address this?
Right, care to address it?" And again, he was like, Fidel Castro is a totalitarian government, and I've been very clear how I feel about totalitarian governments. But he taught the people how to read. And, teaching people how to read and write, literacy, that is a good thing. So I'm not going to say that, it was all bad.
Your Bernie Sanders sounds like a weird mix of Larry David and Martha Stewart.
Well, as long as I was kind of like Larry David.
because when you said a good thing, it sounded like Martha Stewart.
Because Larry David is,
is riding that wave.
Right. Yeah. And como he said, the facts are the facts. End of story. I'm like,
so we want to revisit facts.
I'm like, so listen, Bernie.
Let's pull out the receipts.
So
let's pull out 60 years worth of receipts.
Did you go to Cuba during this time? Do you know Cubans that went through it? Because yes, first of all, prior to the revolution in 1959, Cuba had already enacted a literacy program that existed years before the revolution.
So this is not like he showed up with flashcards.
Right. And Cuba, like many countries, has obviously a more country and rural population.
Y más hace 60 años atrás.
And a more urban one. And Havana was a cosmopolitan city, filled with professionals. Had the University of Havana, which was considered one of the best universities in the Caribbean and Central America, in South America, or in Latin America. Right. And this was a country of analfabetos, the way that he makes it sound, first off. Second of all, what he's talking about in terms of the literacy program was the Escuela de Campo.
Oh, you mean the essentially childlike forced labor camp?
Yes. And why is it that most... It reminds me of 1984, the book, where, as people are born, they have to learn that language, newspeak, because if you diminish language, you diminish independent thought, right? And one of the reasons why the Escuela de Campo was enacted, like in most totalitarian governments, because the easiest way of getting support of your agenda is through youth.
Through the youth. You preach the dogma to the youth.
These Escuela de Campos, as such, were teaching the communist propaganda. It was propaganda.
Propaganda. Yeah.
So when he says, and that is final, it's like, no fuckface. It's not
no,
final. It's not final because that's not what's final. Because it's well known and documented, and this is in newspaper articles, even in the Miami Herald at that time, that teachers in public schools in Cuba were being fired who refused
Did you read that article?
Yes, I read the editorial.
The Fabiola Santiago?
Yes, on Miami Herald. I did read it. But that's something that everybody knew.
Of course.
Everybody knew that teachers were being fired left and right.
Because
or even arrested if they didn't teach
their curriculum.
The propaganda of the communist state, or at that time socialist state.
Right.
So for him to say that, is
a new level of ignorance.
It is.
Willful ignorance.
It is. It is very much so. And I just think I find it insulting in so many ways, because not only did he say something that is factually incorrect,
blatantly wrong, he has completely dismissed the South Florida vote. Because you know what? Yes, obviously Cubans, you put the nail in the coffin. You weren't gonna get the vote from a certain fraction of
you just put the nail in the coffin, but now you've
alienated an entire
you just stuck
community.
in that hole. Venezuelans, stuck in that hole because Venezuelans, now are like allies of Cuba.
Isn't he also like, he doesn't exactly have bad things to say about the Sandinistas?
No, he doesn't, and he has a Sandinista, and also South Florida, because all no matter what country you're from in Latin America,
we've all been touched by some form of that type of totalitarian government, to a degree.
And other people from Latin American countries who obviously know Cubans, because Cubans are the majority here, know of the issues of Cuba and know of the horrible things that went on.
La historia cubana.
So this is like insulting to an entire demographic of people in an entire location, which happens to be a swing state and happens to be one of the most important states in an election. But that is
one of the reasons that I think actually your father's correct. Like, I don't know why you're surprised, but I think that's why I'm surprised that he didn't, in this day and age, try to, I don't want to say back away from the comments, but try to diffuse the comments, because he's in a position now where he could get the nomination.
Because he really believes that.
Fair enough, but from a political standpoint, I
do give him credit in the sense
for
that,
sticking to his guns.
And that I watch all of this like a
hawk. Yeah.
He is very consistent with his message, whether you like it or not. And he's very authentic with what he is and what he represents. So, yes, my father is right. He's always shown you who he is. What's his saying?
When somebody tells you who they are, believe them.
It. He's never beat around the bush. He's been consistent with his agenda since he started the Senate.
Yeah.
He has been. So, I give him credit in that. The man has never faltered. So, he's un perro comunista. And you know what? I know that's kind of an extreme.
Right. And almost in jest.
Because he says, socialism is not communism. Yeah, I know that socialism is not communism.
But the socialism that he is embracing.
But anybody... And I know that the socialism that he is talking about, the democratic socialism that he's talking about has to do with the welfare state. Right, the state of welfare within
Social
the United
Security.
States.
That's
right.
Right.
I know that. I know that doesn't have to do with constitutional rights and with civil liberties and stuff like that.
But
I know that. But the problem is, which we've talked about here before, you cannot, when you're talking about dictators and things like that, you cannot give them an ounce of credibility. Not an ounce, because they spoke about this on The View this week, and all four ladies were
who
on
had 15
fire.
minutes.
All four ladies were on fire. And Whoopi Goldberg said something that was very interesting. Whoopi Goldberg said, you can't you can't say, well, Hitler was horrible, but he created the Autobahn,
He was a lovely painter.
He created the Autobahn, which nowadays is, the highway system.
Right.
The Nazis, created what is in essence the modern day highway system. So, they killed 6 million Jews.
But, they alleviated congestion.
No, you don't say that. You don't say that. And Whoopi made a very good comment. She's like, that's like when the guy in the White House, because she refuses to say Trump's name, that's like when he said there were good people on both sides.
Right.
You know what? You don't say that, because even if in the case of she was talking about Charlottesville, even if there were people who were legitimately arguing the whole issue with the statutes, whether they should be there or not, you cannot give any sort of validation to a side of white supremacists, even if there are people who are in there who are not white supremacists. You just can't. So you can't give a murderous dictator
any ounce of credibility.
You can't. And that's why people take this so seriously. And what Whoopi Goldberg said on The View, which I thought was great, she's like, you know what? Everybody has their own thing. And obviously to a Jew, you mention Hitler and it's very offensive. Right. But to a Cuban, you say this and they're going to find it as offensive because they had to leave their home and leave everything behind. So to them, him saying something like that is as offensive.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, Whoopi, perfectly said.
Well, Whoopi's our girl. She was friends with Celia.
Yeah.
So, there's a little bit of, but to your point of, it's like, Whoopi Goldberg couldn't be further from Hispanic if she tried, but maybe because of her friendship with Celia. It's what we were saying earlier, where like, when you know the struggles of a certain group of people,
you're informed.
You're informed in a way that puts a face on something. And I think that, when you've got all these Bernie bros or all these people just like blindly. And again, I do not care for Bernie Sanders at all. I love the dichotomy that it's like, 22-year-olds are all about like this. How old is he? 204?
He's 78.
Close enough. Like, oh, well, and it's like, but because I think, again, I know people are upset on both sides and blah, blah, but it's this idea of just like, oh, I know I'm generalizing it, but like, I want free shit, quote unquote.
It's not even that. It's
to the point where they don't recognize certain elements of like, look, dude, certain things just aren't gonna work.
If anybody goes into office and says they're gonna wipe out student loans, I'd be the first one to be like, me.
That's true.
That's true. I own my soul to student loans.
It's true, and you still have to pay interest on your soul.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And high interest.
And high interest at that. Yeah.
And even I know. That's something realistic. That to me, when he says that, sounds very appealing because he's talking to someone like me.
Right.
But I am.
What's the reality of that?
How are you going to pay for that? How are you going to do that? I don't think everybody should have free college. I think the tuition of college should be reduced.
Right. It should be more affordable.
It should be more affordable. There should be certainly more opportunities for people of lesser income
to pursue
an
education.
Certain types of people to have greater pathways to college. But I don't think people that are rich should go to college for free. Why? And also, people and not to get too heavy into agenda in politics, people bitch and complain about taxes now. Do you know how much your taxes are going to go up to pay for all these plans? Because all these
the mundo supports everything until they have to pay for it.
All these democratic socialist countries that he talks about in Europe, like Denmark and Norway.
The population is like a third of what it is here.
A third. The population of Denmark is between 3 and 4 million people. right? And yes, the life index there is very high, and people are very happy, and the services there are great. There is free college, there is free healthcare, and it's wonderful. But you're talking about a country of 4 million people that, most importantly, has a homogenized society.
True.
Right?
True.
Because these are not countries that have
high immigration situations,
diverse societies like we do.
Right.
And we know that what fits for one group of people doesn't fit for another. So how are you going to implement that in a country of 350 million people, because I think last count we had about 350 million people of different walks of life, of different incomes, of different, all sorts of races, ethnicities,
all these caveats,
religions, all that. I mean, so that's why politics. I've always loved politics, but I don't necessarily believe everything I hear.
You shouldn't.
So to me, it's like, okay, which one of these people makes the most sense that could kind of
the most realistic, quote unquote,
right? And again, I've said this many times on the show. I'm a Democrat. I'm a liberal. I think I'm as liberal as they come, pero no. I don't feel the burn. I don't feel the burn. No. Especialmente después que es un perro
comunista. No. Perro comunista. There's like 18 R's in there. Minimum.
You know what though? But seriously, like let's try to remove our bias from this, which is impossible.
But fine.
But it is almost shocking to me that in 2020 there is a presidential candidate talking about some of the good things that the Castro regime did. Like stop and think about that. Like just on its own, independently. Like,
you know what? In this political climate, nothing surprises me. Nothing surprises me. Nothing surprises me anymore.
Como dijeron on The View, they were like, "Oh, are they gonna say that Mussolini was great because he made the trains run on time?" Like.
Everybody loves a punctual train.
Meanwhile, they were killing and slaughtering Jews in Italy.
But the trains got there on time. The trains got there on time. I mean, aquí las guaguas no llegan a tiempo ni a cojones, pero,
priority.
Yes.
So the Cubans were being slaughtered, sent to jail for dissidents, but they could read.
But they could read when they would get the notices from the jails about their family being incarcerated.
Exactly.
So, they didn't have to wonder where their family was.
Right. They could read. So anyway. Let's move on to something a little lighter, but as infuriating.
As infuriating? Yeah. Oh, no.
When I read this week, I'm like, topic.
Ay, Dios mío.
So, you're going to love this one. Did you hear? Actually, hold on. Because I need the number.
Oh, there's a number. Okay.
That the FCC got over 1,400 complaints over Jennifer Lopez and Shakira, the Super Bowl halftime.
Not as many as I would have thought.
Okay, so
1,400. I thought you were gonna say 14,000.
Okay, so some of the comments were,
"Bring it."
I do not subscribe to the Playboy channel, and we do not buy porn. We simply wanted to sit down as a family to watch the Super Bowl. One complaint. So.
I have two things about that. Can I rebut to everything?
Sure.
I didn't know the Playboy channel was still in existence. So that subscription is from 1985, and nowadays nobody pays for porn. It's all for free on the internet.
On Pornhub.
Yeah, nobody pays for porn, dear. And if you do, you're a sucker.
Because at the end of the day, we all know what the internet was invented
for. The internet is for porn. Thank you, Avenue Q.
So, let's talk about this. Because we
I can't believe que todavía están jodiendo con esto.
We talked about this when obviously we were reviewing the Super Bowl halftime some weeks ago. But now let's talk about it in the context.
Yeah, we spoke about it with the Domino Saints. Yeah.
So, I went ahead and went back and looked at it.
Okay,
right? Because I tried to see it through critical eyes.
Okay, so to try to understand why is Beverly upset.
Right. So I didn't find anything remotely inappropriate with Shakira's performance. As far as Jennifer's performance, when she came out in the first outfit, in the Versace one with the chaps, there were a couple of scenes.
There's a part where she taps her crotch. Well,
right?
Pero bueno.
What we didn't know was that she was wearing a complete bodysuit under it.
Well, yeah. I could tell.
But, okay, generally.
Okay.
You may have not known that. So there were a couple of shots, that her, you could see, between her legs.
Okay.
Right? And you could see, what would be her panty, I guess, leather.
Her panty line.
You could see it.
Okay.
And there was a part where she was it must be the ass. That she kind of like bends over and they focus on her ass.
Well, it's J-Lo.
Okay.
It's like
So,
if I perform.
so I was like, okay, that's a little racy. That's a little racy.
Okay.
Okay, go with me here. It's a little racy. Then obviously there's the pole dance. And I kept looking at the pole dance. And I'm like, the pole dance is racy because she's on a pole.
Right, because it's not a stripper routine.
Because I could have, if she would have gyrated on the pole
right,
and gone up and down,
right.
even I would have said, Coño, as much as I like Jennifer Lopez, maybe this is not the best place for her to do that. Time and place. But she didn't. She just climbed the damn pole and spun in it. It's not like she was like, gyrating the pole.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
And then I'm like, because I tried to see it in a critical way, because, one of my biggest, I thank God for is I try to be very rational and see things on the other side. And I was like, okay, let's say that someone maybe just didn't like it, but you
felt the need to complain to the federal commission.
Yes. That's the part that I'm like, and the comments, I read a lot of the comments. It was all like akin to porn. And then
what is this porn they're watching?
And then here's why I think that it's a little bit.
These are all women who are reading, 50 Shades of Grey.
No, but this is why I think, and I hate to pull the race card, it's a little racist.
Of course it is.
I looked up the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders because we really don't see the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders here because, first of all, I don't follow football, but obviously the
Dolphins are what gets broadcast.
The Cowboys really aren't featured here much. And I'm going to post this when I post in our Instagram.
Okay.
This is the uniform
I've seen
of the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. They wear 1/3 of what Jennifer Lopez was wearing.
She was wearing a bodysuit.
Right. So this is totally appropriate. But Jennifer Lopez and Shakira are not. Right. How I want somebody to explain that to me. Oh, because this is totally American. This is American, and this is supporting family values, right?
But that is what America's about.
Right. So, but these two women up there
actually performing.
Okay, that is insulting.
Promoting. Actually, and promoting healthy body images.
No, and using the words pornographic. Because again, una cosa que tú me dices, I think that Super Bowl halftime was a little racy, but whatever.
Right.
But using words like pornographic, to describe this, it's like, give me a freaking
Get off your fucking high horse.
That is the type of bullshit, that type of hypocrisy,
Que a mí me pone mal.
Yes. And I don't care. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't want to point out a specific group of people.
You know what? No. I'm going to point it out. You know what? Coño, que casualidad, the last time that we had this many complaints, was when, the beginning of Janet Jackson Appreciation Day happened. Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many complaints Adam Levine got for taking off his shirt? 15.
15? Mm-hmm. Was it from people who didn't like his tattoos?
Mm-hmm. Well, no, but let me make this point. When he took off his shirt and he sang "Moves Like Jagger," right? Mm-hmm. What does the song "Moves Like Jagger" mean? That he moves sexually,
right? Because Mick Jagger, moves like him or hate him, moves
right. You're
provocatively,
not gonna, right. That's the whole point of the song,
right?
You got the moves like Jagger.
Yeah, because Mick Jagger was known for being topless and leather pants and sexy.
Right. So when he takes off his shirt, which he was all sweaty at this point, and he's like, bopping around to moves like Jagger, okay, that is sexual.
From beginning to end.
That is
the
sexual.
Intent
is sexual.
Right.
It's provocative.
Right.
It's supposed to be sexy.
Right.
If not, he would have worn a raincoat. Right?
Ay, que calor in Atlanta.
No, it's supposed to be sexy.
Right.
I mean, I'm not offended by it. If I would have had a teenage daughter or a small daughter, let them watch Adam Levine, shaking it.
Do they not go to the beach?
I mean,
you've never seen a man without a shirt.
Not a big. I wouldn't have been offended, right? But if you want to talk about sex, sexualizing something, his performance was sexualized. Mm-hmm. Why would he have taken off his shirt?
J-Lo and Shakira are wearing more than what the average person wears at the beach.
That's why, I think, and again, I hate to pull the race card. I said it again. I think that had a lot to do with the fact that this Super Bowl halftime show wasn't not only headed by two Latin women, but it had a Latin flavor.
It was a Latino
because
halftime.
Shakira did all these native Colombian dances, these tribal dances.
She even threw Middle Eastern stuff in there.
Some Middle Eastern in there. Jennifer was total Boricua. She pulled out the flag.
Yep.
You
had
she said Jenny from the block.
Bad Bunny who was
Bad Bunny and J Balvin.
J Balvin.
So this was a completely Latin Latin performance, like
beginning to end, honey,
non-apologetic. Right, and I think obviously a lot of people have a problem with that. So what are you going to akin it to?
Yeah, you can't call the FCC to complain that there was too much Puerto Rico.
Right. Oh, because all these all these Latinas are all the same. Right. Shake their ass and they come out half naked. I'm sure that's what was going through Middle America.
You know what? Yeah, we do. Yeah. You know why? Because we got asses, bitch. Mm-hmm. All right.
And we don't have to move like Jagger.
We don't have to move like Jagger. You know why? Because we can move like Celia. Mm-hmm. And we can move like Charo.
I just think it's this whole cancel culture and complaint culture. Coño, if you didn't like their performance,
just
you didn't
shut up and just don't like it.
I didn't like Maroon 5's performance. Remember when we were watching it? I'm like, this fucking sucks. I was like, this is one of the worst halftime shows ever. But whatever.
Shut your trap and
that's
when
it was over, I continued picking
with your life. You went on with your life.
I continued stuffing my face with pizza rolls.
Ay, qué rico. No, I want pizza rolls. We haven't eaten yet. I'm so hungry.
Anyway, let's take a break.
Oh my god. Yeah, let's
and hear from.
Oh god. Yeah.
No, I'm thinking of pizza rolls and hear from our sponsor. Yep, we'll be right back.
Kiddie rides, fun slides, corn dogs, baby hogs. Come on in and don't delay. $5 admission on opening day. The Youth Fair opens March 12th. Get ready for heart-pounding rides, mouth-watering food, shows, and free parking. Get your discount tickets today and save at Sedano's or at fairexpo.com. And if you're 5 and under, admission is free. The Youth Fair on the fairgrounds at Coral Way and 112th Avenue. $5 opening day on March 12th. Visit fairexpo.com.
And we're back.
Yep.
So, want to touch base on a little local issue here. That, has to do a lot with what's going, something that has been going on for quite some time in terms of, we kind of talked about it earlier about Civil War monuments and
so
yes.
So,
did you hear
that happened? And I feel like what you're about to talk about happened with maybe it was me, but minimal.
Yeah,
fanfare.
Because it was unanimous. So here in Miami, one of the most traveled or biggest thoroughfares is US 1, which is the same US 1 that takes you to New York
and down to the Keys.
Yes. Oh yes. Yeah. So literally from
top to bottom,
from
baby.
Top to bottom, from the zero post mile. What is
the southernmost place in whatever
New York or Maine or whatever it ends. But the stretch of US 1 that is in most of Miami is called, and even I believe Broward. It's called South Dixie Highway.
I know it's South Dixie Highway. I just don't know how far that
goes. So South Dixie Highway, many places or monuments around the country that have a relation to either or some context in terms of the Civil War and slavery and
antebellum South.
Exactly. Came up for vote and it was decided unanimously to remove the name South Dixie Highway and name it Harriet Tubman Way or
name it after Harriet Tubman.
So how do we feel about this?
Well, the funny thing is that I never called it Dixie Highway anyway. I always said I always used to say US 1.
I call it South Dixie Highway because in maps it always comes out as South Dixie Highway.
Oh no, to me it's always been US 1. So for me it's not much of a change. I think it's great. I mean, we couldn't put it on the $20 bill, but okay, well, let's give her a street. Why not?
Yeah, I think
I'm a little upset Cynthia Erivo did not come down for the
I've
ribbon
had
cutting.
A lot of people ask me why they changed the name. But you know what was interesting? It's not that they asked me what they changed the name in retaliation of changing the name. It's that a lot of people didn't know what Dixie meant.
That's the thing. You know what I think it is, especially down here? It's because of the supermarket. Since you've got Winn-Dixie, I think people don't.
And Dixie Cups,
Dixie Carter. You don't think about Dixie. It's one of those weird Civil War terms that I think has, I don't want to say the word evolved, but it's
meaning doesn't have relevance anymore.
It doesn't have relevance anymore to the direct connection to the South, I think, in the same way. Now, I think it's also because we're in South Florida and it's a predominantly Hispanic demographic down here. I'm sure the further up
Dixie.
No, but I'm sure in Georgia, Dixie has still a stronger connotation. But I think down here most people don't know Dixie. Again, I think tú le dices a most people el Dixie.
I'm gonna read the actual definition of it.
Because I couldn't tell you I know what it is exactly.
Dixie, other known as Dixieland, is a nickname for the southern United States, especially those states that are composed of the Confederate States of America.
Right.
Ding, 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 ding. The term originally referred to states south of the Mason-Dixie line. But now it's more of a cultural reference.
Oh, it comes from the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah.
Mira, I would have never put that together.
But now it's referring to parts of the southern United States.
Oh, okay. Well, mira, Dolly Parton had to change the name of her dinner show thing because it used to be Dolly's Dixieland Stampede.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, Dixie is definitely one of those words that I think has a little bit of a gray area.
Because it's just talking about the region?
Yeah. But you know what? I don't have a problem with them changing it because even if it's just talking about the region, it's still something that stirs up a lot of negative emotions in a lot of people, rightfully so. Mm-hmm. And you know what? It doesn't hurt to change it especially to somebody who really deserves
some recognition, some recognition,
like Harriet Tubman.
Absolutely.
So I'm totally for Harriet Tubman Drive. Ahora, how the GPS is going to pick that up? And all that, and I could just imagine, like new school people that move here, new like Cubans. Harriet Tubman drive.
Harriet Tubman drive. Imagínate tú.
O la US One.
La US One. I call it la US One.
La US One.
Like even if I'm talking in English, I'll be like, yeah, just go there, just get la US One. Like I call it la US One.
La US One.
La US One.
So anyway, what do you have for me?
Well, it ties into our guest this week, Carlos Santos, who is, I mean, obviously
he's a friend of the podcast.
Friend of the podcast from Spanish Aqui Presents, but he's also in Netflix's new show Gentefied.
Mm-hmm. Which, if you guys haven't watched it, watch it.
It's really it's
great.
It's not what you think it's gonna be.
No, and it has a lot of heart.
Yeah,
which I loved.
It's the most important thing. But so I was sent this link by another friend of ours, Overheard Miami.
Oh, yes.
We used to work together. And it's a link to an article.
Where were we the other day that somebody said something that I don't know if it was you or somebody that said, that's an Overheard Miami. Like
we were in Wynwood.
What was it?
I forgot what it was, but we were in Wynwood. And I remember, it was me. I'm like,
that's something that we would send to Overheard Miami.
Yeah.
Did you see, okay, before you get into that, did you see the meme? I got to post it that is, I think, hilarious. That it says, to make it in Miami, you got to have 2 jobs and a little side of fraud.
Where's the lie, though? Where's the lie?
Anyway, go ahead.
Where's the lie? So he sent me this thing. It's an article from The Federalist. Mm-hmm. And the headline is 98% of Latinos don't want to be called Latinx. And so I bring it up because obviously that's a big thing, with Gentefied taking place on the West Coast. And when we were out there on the West Coast, Latinx is, I think it's taking root more in the quote unquote woke areas, shall we say. But so this was based on a nationwide poll done by...
Was most of the polling done in the East Coast, especially in South Florida? Because as we discussed here, that term doesn't exist.
So it was done by Think Now Research, which conducted a national survey of Latinos to discover Hispanic sentiment toward the term Latinx. So respondents were presented with 7 of the most popular terms used to describe their particular demographic. So the terms included Hispanic, Latino/Latina, Chicano/Chicana, Latinx, American, my country of origin, so either Cuban, Mexican, Puerto Rican, or my country of origin plus American, Cuban American, Mexican American, etc. It was a poll of only 508 people, so it's not like it was a huge, sample size. But it said that, so 98%, and the headline's a little misleading, but 98% of the respondents indicated that they prefer a term other than Latinx to denote their ethnicity. Only 2% prefer Latinx, making it the least preferred term. The most preferred, it goes into the details or what have you, but the most respondents preferred the term Hispanic, with Latino, Latina being the second most preferred identifier. And the reason that they brought this up is because with this being an election year, they have noticed that there's a lot of politicians that in their quest to, appeal to the Hispanic voter community are starting to use Latinx. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of those things where it's like,
we're going to have this conversation because this is a conversation I've been wanting to have for a while.
Do I use it? Is it alienating? Is it, I mean, I've said this before. I'll call you whatever you want me to call you. If you tomorrow show up to be like, hi, I identify as Book, I'll be like, okay, this is my friend Book. So be it. But I just don't think that we need Latinx when we can say Latin.
That's how I went. Okay. First of all, disclaimer again. I think that if you feel comfortable using that word,
I don't care. I'll use it. And that's what you want to identify as?
You feel that you identify as Latinx. I am no one to tell you
that you cannot identify as that.
If you feel comfortable with that, more power to you. I will call you Latinx all day, or I will refer to you as a Latinx person all day long because I'm no one to tell you not to. Right. I had always referred to myself as Latin. Mm-hmm. And that's asexual. That's not male or female. Right. I had always referred to myself as Latin. I'm a Latin person, or if I'm using the term Latin, obviously. Correct. I personally use the word more Hispanic.
Or Cuban American. Or,
I have a problem with the word Latino. And I'm going to go out
Latino?
and say Latino. And I'm going to go out and say it right now.
Do you have a problem with it when it is said in English?
I'm going to tell you why I have a problem with it. Most people that you ask for that are Latino of whatever country, they will tell you that when they were back in Venezuela, eran venezolano. When they were back in Nicaragua, eran nicaragüense. No se consideraban latino. Yo soy nicaragüense, yo soy venezolano, soy colombiano, soy peruano, soy cubano, whatever. Mm-hmm. I have never liked the word Latino, and I never will like the word Latino because to me, and I did some research for this recently, and I was 100% correct. To me, the word Latino was a word made up by a white man in the Census Bureau of the United States in order to paint with one brush an entire continent of people, and I was actually correct. The term Latino was invented in the United States to term all people from South and Latin America.
To lump everybody together.
And it was created for census reasons.
Because you have white, you have
Like
black.
I felt it. I'm like,
there has to be a reason.
The term, it makes no sense because, as we know, Latin America is so diverse,
right? Very
in
individual
terms of culture, and it's so rich in culture. Like Mexican culture is so rich and so so definitively
distinct.
Mexican.
Yeah.
To like Argentinian culture, to Colombian culture. They're very, very different. So how did we all get lumped in together? Not to say that across the board, there are certainly a lot of similarities between us. Certainly, obviously, language and also Christianity. These are all countries that were, at one point, Spanish colonies. So these are all countries that are
certain elements of our cultures overlap.
Right, but all that is from Spain. Right?
Correct.
So that is the thread that kind of puts us together. And I don't mind being put in the same boat as everybody else, in terms of those things that do combine us. Because as we always grow up, laugh and say in jest here, like we say growing up Hispanic or growing up Latin or Latino.
We have similar experiences.
Our parents are overbearing. Our parents,
no sleepovers.
They yell at us.
Chaperones.
And those are all things that as Latin people or Hispanic people, we share in common. Right. But I had always had a problem with the term Latino defining everybody because these are countries and cultures that are so different in terms of their again, Mexico has such a rich, distinctive culture that has nothing to do with the culture of Brazil or the culture of Uruguay,
right?
Peru, or even Cuba.
Puerto Rico.
So I'm like, the word never made sense to me. So that's why I never, until this day, I don't feel comfortable considering myself Latin. And it certainly has nothing to do with me wanting to be white, because I have no interest in being white.
Let's put that up front and center. This is not the issue at hand at all.
No, because a lot of people deny their Latin.
Right, it's because they're trying to their pass or whatever.
Trying to pass.
Right.
I have no interest
not even a little bit, for the love of God.
I love my white friends.
Yeah.
They're amazing. I love them. I will take
but
a
you love your
for
culture.
Them, but I love my culture. I'm no interest in being something that I'm not, because I am not white. My skin color may be white, but I am not white.
Right.
So that is my problem with the term, and I was when I researched it, I was right. That was a term. Probably it was invented in the 1950s. Probably of a group of white men who didn't know about. Probably all saw us the same. Like, okay, what are we going to call? Especially in the 50s when the country started having a larger. Influence, Latin American migration. Mm-hmm. Okay, what are we going to do with all these Spanish-speaking people?
Yeah, do we call them Spanish?
Are they Spanish? They're from Latin America. Let's call them Latinos. Right. And I was right. And that's a little bit in a way it's insulting because it's watering down the culture of every country. That is, I feel very passionately about it.
I see
That's
this.
my answer.
I see this.
But that's how I feel about that word.
Interesting. I don't feel one way or the other. I too prefer Hispanic, and I don't know why. I've never been able to put my finger on it. I think a big part of it is just because I don't speak Latin.
Well, Hispanic, the actual definition of a Hispanic are people from countries that speak Spanish. That's why somebody from Brazil is considered Latin,
but not Hispanic.
Right. And it's just, all these labels upon labels, because don't you remember an article that we read not too long ago? It was an editorial, actually, where they were talking about Latinx community, and they stuck in there.
Oh, they put in there like Haitian Americans.
Like Haitian Americans. And I'm like Haitians. I'm like, wait, Haitians are Latinx too? Like,
yeah. It's like they come from, it's French.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Haitians are based on France, like they're French.
Right. Which, okay, fine. If we want to get technical, yes, they're all from the Romance languages. Yes, they all stem from Latin. But I mean, so what? Italians are Latin too.
Yeah, but then that's why.
Where does it end?
Where does it end? Because then it's so complicated. Because then most Latin America gets their culture from Spain or Portugal, and Spain and Portugal are Iberian. They're not even like European. They're Iberian.
Right.
Right. Whereas like France is European, right? True. And you know what, and that's why it's like the United States is so like gung ho on labels.
We love to put labels
because like ahora, like the same goes to Europe. In Europe, you're European. Are you gonna mean to tell me that somebody from Spain
is the same
European
as French,
as somebody who's German?
German.
I mean, you put a German and a Spaniard together, Dutch. I mean, things are gonna get interesting really fast. You mean that somebody from Romania is the same, is European the same way that somebody from Portugal is? Like, come on. Yeah. Like, but that's, I don't know. Like, the United States is like obsessed with labels. Like, you have to fit into a box.
We love to quantify everything.
And because we hate boxes, we have a t-shirt that's
Coño, oye, te la comiste.
I did a full circle on that.
Te la comiste, vaya. Te la comiste. That is some Thalia level promotion going on right
Wendy
there.
Williams
Wendy Williams.
Promoting our
like
brand.
12 things.
I'm the brand.
You're the brand.
The brand. No. That's joking around. We have a t-shirt that's coming out very soon that actually is, as we said earlier, it's going to premiere on
Carnaval de Mayo.
Carnaval de Mayo. That it has a little bit to do with what we were just talking about.
It's a little tongue-in-cheek of all this.
What we were talking about. So, bueno. Going now to our interview.
Also tongue-in-cheek, not so much tongue-in-cheek, but embracing the full individuality of it and the nuances. I mean, again, it was so nice of Carlos to sit and chat with us.
Because Carlos is a busy boy.
You want to talk about a whirlwind tour? When we interviewed him, it was maybe like 2 days after the show had premiered. Mm-hmm. He literally flew in like that morning, met with us that night. The next day, he had a full press junket with like, I don't know how many people here in Miami, was getting on a plane to go to New York. Then like the next day, he was going to be in DC. Oh, so I think he's still traveling. He still hasn't made it back to Los Angeles as of this recording.
Yeah, it was so funny because like, I was like, Coño, we had a little bit of time. I would have totally taken him. We should have taken him to like sandwich.
Yeah, totally.
I was like, Carlos, you got to try the Cuban sandwich.
Yeah, comes a sandwich, you know. He didn't even have time to breathe.
But he was kind enough, and we really appreciated to sit down and talk to us. So without further ado, here is Carlos Santos from Spanish Aqui Presents, because that's where met him. That's true. And now from Netflix's Gentefied.
Yep, enjoy mi gente.
Caballero, it's time for Carnaval Miami. The party starts with Carnaval on the Mile, March 7th and 8th, when the heart of Coral Gables becomes a free street fair with food, art, and live music from R&B,
Latin jazz,
and for the first time, country music. Not to mention Fork and Cork, where you can sample some of the best foods in Miami for just $75 per session. Then Sunday, March 15th, it's Carnaval's crown jewel, the Calle Ocho Music Festival, full of food, music, and drinks with performances including this year's Kings of Carnaval, Mau y Ricky. And if you love the festival, pero, you want to skip the molote de gente, there's a VIP passport option for purchase with access to lounges and backstage parties throughout the party route. So for more information, visit carnavalmiami.com, and don't forget, your boys from Pero Let Me Tell You are going to be at Carnaval on the Mile, so stop by and see us. It's time to pachanga, mi gente.
And we're back.
All right, guys. So we are here with, sure, he's one of the stars of the new Netflix show Gentefied, but
no biggie, right?
We can say we knew him when. He's been on the show before. Yeah, this is, your second round. It's our friend, our boy, Carlos. Damn it, I can't remember. Santos.
That's all right. It's okay. It's not Santana. That happens a lot.
I was just going to say, of course, it's Carlos.
You knew me when you just knew me by Carlos. That's fine.
That's it, yeah.
But, Carlos is from Spanish Aqui Presents, which, as you guys know, we're always talking about the we need to start getting
supplemental.
Royalties.
You guys are supplemental.
Yeah.
So.
We're like totally tooting your podcast on the East Coast. Yeah. But as you guys know, a couple of months ago, they were gracious enough to invite us to the studios and host us, and we did an episode with them. So it feels kind of full circle that now one of their hosts, Carlos, is on Netflix on Gentefied, and we're going to talk about that today. So, Carlos, welcome again to Pero Let Me Tell You.
Welcome back.
So, it was a joy having you guys on the other side. It's happy to be doing it on the west, on the east.
So
now you're in our home turf.
Exactly.
East Coast.
Okay, I gotta say though, you don't know where you're at right now. You've been traveling since 5 a.m. California time.
Yeah, they came to pick me up at my apartment at 3:30 in the morning.
Oof.
So.
Wow.
Bastante que está,
you're doing quite well.
You're very lucid. Yeah.
I think I am. Is this happening in real time? Is this real life?
It's all a dream.
So anyway, obviously we know you from the podcast, but obviously you had beginnings, in terms of work and acting. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into this whole crazy entertainment field.
So I left. So I'm from Puerto Rico, born and raised, as you all know, as you've heard if you've heard the podcast. I've said it many times. I left Puerto Rico after my freshman year of college, and I always wanted to do something with comedy. But back in the day, nobody really had any advice for me. Like I didn't have my family is they're all professionals, right? So they're lawyers, they're teachers, they're dentists. Like nobody had any kind of advice to tell me. So I knew that I wanted to come out here. So I ended up in Fresno. In the exchange program. But you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. It was an amazing experience. I ended up switching over to theater. From then, that led to me doing the summer arts program for Second City. Second City, of course, major improv school that started in Chicago a long time ago. And they pretty much started the whole modern improv movement back in the day. So from there, it was just a series of steps that led me to LA. By the time I moved to LA, I was already doing the conservatory for Second City. Then I took a little detour into hosting, which I didn't know was going to be a thing until it just kind of presented itself. So I ended up hosting for 7 years. I was at LA TV first, which is a local television station. And from that experience, I was able to go right into MTV3. So when that came out, I was overqualified just because I had been doing it for 3 years. And so it's one of those things where it's it just felt like it was going somewhere, but as soon I realized that hosting was not what I wanted to do. So I had to make a very tough decision to kind of stop. And nobody was on board with me. This is all literally 10 years ago. This is why this Gentefied story is very special, because in 2009, I remember telling my friend, one of my best friends that used to work at MTV3, I scared the crap out of him because I was like, I need to leave. And he was like, well, what are you talking about? You can't, you're doing the show. It's not that I wanted to leave at that moment. It's just I knew that I was just I was going to get stuck, or I was being held back because I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do. And I realized that hosting was great as long as there was a comedy element to it. Because for a second, I had my own comedy variety show. It was called Entertainment as a Second Language. So originally I started hosting Me TRL, which was the Latino version of TRL. For those of you back in the day, MTV had Back when
Back
the internet,
in the-
the
back when
internet,
videos
back when
and
music videos.
yeah. When people look to see that stuff on TV and not on the internet. So, but then eventually I had that for like a few months, and then the recession hit, and it was stripped away from me. And at that point, I realized, wow, I had touched it. I touched the brass ring very briefly, and I was like, I can't go back to tossing the pitbull. I love Daddy Yankee and pitbull, but this ain't it.
Because on Me TRL, you had more like artistic freedom and
Yeah, well, at first it was a carbon copy of TRL, which was just like a hosting show with an audience. We did it in Times Square, same space and everything. But
so you were Carson Daly.
So yeah, and that used to like drive me nuts, and now I'm okay with it. Nah, I'm totally fine. I basically just kind of said, hey, I started to kind of infiltrate the show and be like, can I do this comedy bit? Can I do this? Like at the beginning, I don't know if you guys know, TV shows don't start with the graphics. It's called a cold open.
Yeah.
So that's the term, the TV term. And so like when we did our very first show, and this is 2006, they didn't have any plans for a cold open. So I was like, hey, do you mind if I write a sketch? So and they were like, yeah, sure. And that became my outlet. So when I was first doing Me TRL, dude, if I tell you, man, that's why I mean, it was the fact that it wasn't planned, it still was amazing because I got access to a bunch of people that were coming into regular TRL. So I got to do sketches that I wrote for Steve Carell, that are Adam Sandler. I mean, I could go on. If they were there to promote the regular, like on regular TRL, they would give us like 30 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And so like I cut my teeth because I was by myself. I did get burned out because I literally by myself every week writing and producing and editing and whatever, and that was my life for at least 3 years.
And it's a daily show, so you're
It's
doing
a weekly
this-
show.
Oh, it was
Thank
weekly.
God, yeah.
Oh, okay,
it was a
okay,
weekly
okay,
show. They
okay.
couldn't. No, we didn't have the staff for like.
Okay, because I was gonna say, damn, you were doing this 5 days a week.
No,
Like,
we were
I mean,
preparing, but like you know how it is. Like everybody, all the moving parts kind of come together, and we shot it. I think at the end of every week.
Okay,
It was still grueling.
still, oh yeah.
I remember the first 6 months was so tough that I would spend the weekends in bed. Like I wouldn't even get out because I was so exhausted. I would just be like looking at the ceiling and just processing to get ready to start over on Monday.
Wow. Luckily, New York has lots of delivery.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't know that then, but now I do. Too late. So after that I was like, I gotta be done. And so I finished out my contract with MTV. I moved back to LA and I literally started from scratch. And when I say I started from scratch is that I had started to say no to projects because the only thing that was coming my way was hosting related.
Right.
So I had to make a conscious decision. I said, I either buckle down or I'm going to get stuck in this thing because that's what's giving me money. And so, you know, I said to myself at one point in New York, I was like, I was under contract for 4 years. I was getting paid. Imagine getting paid, whether you work or not, every week for 4 years.
When you're nice.
You would think that that's nice, but I was miserable.
Right.
I mean, that's when you realize that either makes you happy or it makes you miserable. Whether
But it takes courage to walk away from like
Sure.
That stability.
First of all, and it's MTV because some people would argue that the fact that you were hosting on MTV that
exactly,
was like
and
the
I felt
top.
very guilty too because precisely what you're saying. I felt also like I was not being appreciative.
Yeah.
Appreciative? How many T's are in?
A lot of them.
I wasn't appreciative of the opportunity, but I had to be real with myself, and so this was a gamble that and I left Puerto Rico when I was like 18, and so this has been an ongoing journey for me, and so like for the first few years when I moved back to LA, I was broke. And it's a mind, like it messes with your mind when you're like E and all these other shows that are hosted, red carpet shows and gossip shows. That's all that's presented to you, and you're like, no.
And you could do it.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, oh, can I? No, you were doing this for the longest ass time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I literally just put MTV in a vault, kind of like put it away. For a long time, it's like it feels like a different lifetime. Like a lifetime ago. Like I have friends at UCB who will for some reason get on the internet for some reason be like, wait, what the crap? So if you like look for MTV and all these pictures pop up with a bunch of celebrities, and I'm like, yeah, it feels like I went to war and nobody knows about it. so I struggled for the first few years, and it really came to a head in 2012. But by 2013, I was able, things started to pick up. I got a commercial campaign with Metro BCS, and that saved my life financially. I mean, above and beyond. 2012 was the toughest year. A lot of bad things happened. My dad passed away. I broke up with my girlfriend of 4 years. I dropped my agency. I was with William Morris, but it just wasn't doing anything. I really just started from scratch in 2012. But that pushed me to really make moves on my own. You come to a decision. You either you get into the fetal position or you buck up and you start doing it. And I think that confluence of events just kind of made me see it from far away. So I was able to just kind of like, I don't know, it was like, me desprendí de todo eso.
Yeah.
And then I just saw everything for what it was, and I just started, I broke up with my girlfriend at the time. I dropped everybody. I just started from scratch, and I was able to do a movie. And so like good things started to happen. It was still a tough year, but then 2013 was a blessing because I had a movie that premiered on Slam Dance, not Sundance, but it's the same. It's independent. It happens at the same time, right? I was doing a sketch series for Sofia Vergara's YouTube channel at the time. It's called Nuevon. They had a show called Chamacas, so I was doing that, and I was writing and acting in it with a bunch of people, very talented people. And then I had the commercial, so it was these things that were finally like that felt like the beginning of like finally being financially stable, just being fulfilled, and it seemed like the beginning. So then, I mean, that was that saved my life. Then it was still the beginning process of what ended up happening, which is transitioning into being able to do my own, being in a series regular on a TV show, and that took that was 2013. So then I just kept doing a lot of UCB, as you all know. I started UCB when I was in New York, and then I was able to organically kind of start taking classes, and I started doing shows with Riza and Tony and Oscar, and it just kind of fell together. And then when we started doing Spanish Aqui, I think things kind of like blew up in a really positive way, and I really feel like Spanish Aqui Presents really set the course in 2018 when we started, because by the time last year happened, I got representation that I already knew about Spanish Aqui Presents.
Oh, okay. So it helped open a couple doors.
Even the show Gentefied, one of the creators, Marvin, he basically is a friend. He's a friend of Spanish Aqui Presents. So it was beautiful because it was like full circle, also like to have these organic connections with people, which also let me know that I was ready to move on to this next phase. And so I had the best, pilot season, which for those of you who don't know, pilot season is at the beginning of the year. All the actors go out for all the new shows that are going to be considered for that season. And it's a frenzy, as you all know. It's not easy. A lot of people suffer through pilot season. It's like foolhardy. Like people get all like worked up, and then they get nothing, and then the year passes, and you're like, all right, let's go. Here we go, pilot season again.
We hear that sometimes people audition for so many pilots in one season that they kind of forget which character they are. It's like supposedly crazy.
If you get lucky, then you get auditions. Sometimes you don't get anything, and then the worst part is when you're hearing about everybody auditioning for pilots. You're like, oh, you got an audition for that? Oh, cool.
Is it still as crazy though? I mean, considering that now we have almost like year round with all the digital, I would think it's different. No,
it's gotten a little bit different in terms that it gets like spread out a little more. But at the end of the day, this is an old school network format. The pilot season process is the networks are still doing it to a certain degree. The good thing is because of cable opened it up for more. Now with streaming, it's not necessarily, but there is still a mad rush that happens between March and April and May where people are going out. And last year, I mean, I went out for the first time and I had new representation, and I went out for a bunch of things, and it was just the first time I felt really like I was taking a bite out of pilot season, and I ended up with the show.
Did you ever audition? Because I love to hear when people their success stories and they land that great role and that great show. I like to hear their horror stories in terms of pilots.
Oh my God.
Did you ever have any pilots that you actually got and did that you're like, this is crap?
Well, I got lucky that this is the first show that I've ever gotten.
Oh wow.
I mean, it took a long time.
Yeah.
But I think that's the best way to describe my life. My career and my life has always been like, it might have taken longer, but when it does happen, it's very meaningful. I got close. I tested for pilots. I got really close to it. Actually, the horror story that I'm about to tell you happened within a week of auditioning for Gentefied. I was actually testing for an NBC comedy pilot. Oh. And I got really close, and I was doing a chemistry test. This was a Monday, keep in mind. And so it was second lead. So it was there was a girl lead, and so I was going in to do a chemistry test with her. And it was terrible because for some reason that girl, I don't even remember her name, and I don't want to, was just like not about it. I don't know for whatever reason she didn't want to usually when you do chemistry tests,
right,
you try to meet the person, you try to talk to him, you try to maybe go over it, and she was not having it. I saw her for the first time when I went into the room, and immediately I was trying to be friendly. But the point is that I completely bombed this chemistry test, and it shook me. Because for the first time, it had nothing to do with me. It was somebody sabotaging my audition. So I was so out of it. I literally went to bed like at 9 and I didn't wake up till the next day because I was so mentally exhausted. So that was on Monday. Then Friday I get a producer session which is after you do a first audition, you get a call back and then a producer session. I went from one audition to a producer session. I'm giving you a lot of information. I hope you're catching up.
It's an audio medium. Without you talking, we've got nothing. So
okay,
you know this, man. Come on.
No, but I feel like I'm talking a lot and very fast. Let me know if I need to slow down. And so anyway, no. So Friday I auditioned for the producer session, and then I got a chemistry test for the following Monday. And it was the complete opposite. Yeah, it was the complete opposite. So that is to say, I had the worst experience one Monday, and I had the best experience the Monday after. And I got two chemistry tests with JJ at the time. I mean, we were all meeting, and immediately we just felt like we had immediate chemistry, and it just worked out really well, and really felt like something. But still, it was still a battle because obviously this is my first series regular role. I only had a couple co-stars and guest stars in my belt. So Netflix was like, wait a minute, I don't know. Let's bring him back. And rightfully so. I mean, I'm saying that. I'm not saying that like how dare you?
It's legit, yeah.
Yeah, when you don't have credits, like usually industry needs to know that they can vouch. If nobody can vouch for you, which is what happens when you have credits, everybody, they're investing in a project and they want to make sure that you're going to do it well.
It's a reference.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I ended up going back a bunch of times, and they kept calling me back, and I was like, okay, let's go the whole time. So I must have gone like 5 or 6 times. To convince them.
But thankfully, like auditions, like read throughs.
Yeah, these are all like sessions with they were either chemistry tests or I was just reading in front of the camera. So the good news is that every time that I kept coming back, I was getting more and more comfortable with the character. Because a lot of times actors don't. Oh, I didn't realize that, but it also makes a difference when you spend more time with the character because it lives with you. Claro. Sometimes you're doing an audition, you have less than 24 hours to put something up. And it's not easy. I mean, you can be a good actor or whatever, but there's something about living with a character long enough that you know exactly what they do. So it actually made it easier or better. And the production team, I was able to show them, not because it's usually divided between networks and the producers, right?
Right.
That's when you're testing. Then I'm giving you a lot of lingo. So the producers were on board, and I could feel that. But clearly, the network, which in this case is Netflix, needed to be convinced. And so it was. That is to say, I wouldn't have it any other way because I really feel like where I'm standing right now, I fought the crap out of it.
Yeah, right.
There is never a doubt in my. I mean, there's no like, oh, he got lucky.
No.
Oh,
no,
hey,
no.
hey man, that's the lottery. No. I stand here before you with a plate of salmon that I just ate.
And it looked delicious.
It was so good.
It looked really good. No sé si el hambre que yo tengo, but it looked really good. But yeah, no, I mean, I was just listening actually to the episode where you interviewed the exec producers, and frankly, I think you got it just because you are the made-for-TV Marvin. So just to bring it back, I
call back. Yeah.
But so. Like I said, I've seen the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't had a chance to see the rest of it. So sorry ahead of time.
That's
but
right.
I will say, kind of love your character.
Yes.
Because I feel like Chris, obviously you're the entry character, right? It's like through Chris, we're learning about this whole family and the dynamic and all that. And I have to say, just based on the first episode, me parece que la tienen cogida contigo.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it's just like, all he wants to do is be a chef. Like, leave the kid alone. But what did you relate to with...
I mean, that's the beautiful thing about this project, too, is that all of the actors had a deep connection with the character, organically. And we all came with it from a place of like, oh, yeah, we get this guy. So I know Chris because I left Puerto Rico. I always... you leave your family, you leave your island, where you're from. And when you go back, you want to be accepted, and sometimes that happens when you go away. People don't see you the same way.
Give us a little bit of background on Chris.
Oh, yeah. So Chris, when he was little, he was born in Boyle Heights, but he left when he was a child. So he went to Idaho. So he ended up growing up in Idaho with his dad. So we got the Caucasian way of living, if you will. That's the best way to put it. And then he came back in his late 20s. So now he's struggling with not feeling a part of the community. He feels like he is because he was born there and he left maybe like the first 10 years of his life he was there. Right. But the reality is that people are just not accepting him. And rightfully so. So he's struggling because he feels like he's a part of it, but he knows that it's tough, but he wants to. But at the same time, he wants to be this thing, so he wants to follow this dream. And so, like, that's the beautiful thing about the character and about the series, that it really explores the struggle that a lot of us kind of have to go with. Or you have to find what's more important: family, community, your dreams. There's a crazy battle between all that stuff, and there is no right answer, right? We're just kind of showing you a story of this family that's struggling with it, because we're all struggling with it.
Well, set up the main plot of the whole series.
So basically, Joaquin Cosio plays our grandfather, and he is the
fantastically, by the way.
He's amazing. He's so
he's
my grandfather. I don't
like care. He's every Hispanic grandfather you've ever met.
Yeah. He's amazing to have him like anchor the show like that with so much soul. It's amazing. So he's owned a taco restaurant for a long time, for 30 years, and his wife died at some point in the past, so he's kind of doing it by himself, and so he is taking care of the 3 cousins. So it's me, Eric, Chris, Eric, and Anna, and so what's happening because of the Gentefied, with the gentrification situation, is that they're raising the rent, and so they are trying to survive so that they don't they get evicted, and so it's dealing with that. So every character has to kind of like put their dream on hold for a certain degree. And for my character, it's like, and I start out the series working at a fancy restaurant, trying to get Michelin. I'm working for a chef that's super racist, but also has the opportunity to give me. So it's like
the cordon bleu,
which is what happens, right? Like it's a complicated situation where you want something out of someone, but that also means that you're putting up with certain things that are not right? So he treats the staff like garbage. He doesn't treat me like garbage because he feels like I'm, And so Chris definitely feels guilty about it to a certain degree. So he's kind of processing all that, which comes to a head in episode 3.
Okay, so now I got something to look forward to.
Oh,
all right.
So episode 3 and 4 are basically like Chris's like main story arc journey into becoming, spoiler alert, I'm not going to talk about spoiler, but into becoming what he ends up turning into at the end of the season. Still struggling, still has a terrible relationship with his dad, because the dad doesn't want to pay for his cooking school. Yeah. So he's forced to live in Boyle Heights. So it's a very complicated issue. And this is what I love about the show. Like, everybody on paper, you start watching and you think, oh, these are stock characters, or these are like, oh, this is the la mamá de Ana. Oh, she's the overbearing mother. And then you keep watching and you realize, oh, they did something, because they just flipped it around. Yeah. And they added all these dimensions to these characters. And it's funny because I feel like first of all, I'm super happy because it's been super positive, so overwhelmingly positive from people. It's interesting that the people that I do hear, maybe I hear some kind of like forces, like they only watch like the first 2, which I think it's hilarious, and it's to the point that it's setting you up for something that you think is going to be a certain way, and it just makes a hard left, and it opens up, it cracks open the community, cracks up the characters in a way that I don't think anybody is expecting. So you gotta get to.
Well, even to your point about not just being stock characters, the landlord, I don't remember his name,
Wilbur.
But
well,
he comes in, Rob,
yeah.
and you want to be like, oh, he's the bad guy or whatever. But even in that brief scene that he has with Joaquin, he's like, look, it's my business, but you can tell he doesn't want to do it. He's not like mustache twirling. He's not coming in and just being like,
on paper,
he loves coconuts or something.
Right.
Eric calls him a coconut, and he's like, I love coconuts. That's the beautiful thing about it too. Is like, it's on paper that character should be a terrible human being, but it's more complicated than that, obviously, because I feel like what Gentefied is trying to set up is like it's a multi-layered situation. It's complicated, it's sensitive, and it's what every person has to decide what's more important, and at what price, and at what cost, and then at what consequence do you decide to go down the path that you want to.
One of the things that I enjoyed from the whole concept of the show is that, whether it was intentional or not, it is bringing light to the whole issue of gentrification, because I know that here in Miami, that's a really big problem that's happening. Little Havana here, which obviously was an enclave to Cubans, the rents have skyrocketed as well. Little Haiti is now becoming very popular too, and people who've lived there.
That's the next big gentrifier.
Are they going to change the name? Did they already change the name? Because I feel like that's how you know.
They haven't changed. They don't change the name, but like when fancy restaurants start coming in and like Starbucks and all that, then the local whatever small little shop is out. Rent is like doubled. So I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I feel the show, obviously in a comedic way, hit on something that is really, really affecting minority communities nowadays. I don't know.
Well,
if
it's
that
happening in
intentional.
Harlem. It's happening in Little
happening
Havana.
everywhere.
It's happening everywhere.
It's been happening. And the thing is, like, now we have tenemos nombre y apellido. We call it gentrification. This has been going on for years. It's funny because I remember last year I was visiting my family in Sarasota, right before I was about to start shooting. And my sister, she's a dentist, and her husband. And so we were at an event, and I was talking to, the people that worked with her, and nobody knew. And I'm talking about white people. They didn't know the term gentrification. Mm-hmm. But then as soon as I told them, because that's essentially what happened with Sarasota. I don't know if you're familiar. Sarasota was all farmland. Mm-hmm. And slowly but surely they started to bring all these things, and now it's like a legit place. But like 10 years ago, it was all farm as far as the eye can see. Yeah, campo. So when I basically brought it up in those terms, they were like, oh, so it's interesting, because even if people don't know the term, they know what gentrification is. And I think that's why it's important. That's why I think this series is doing a good job of just at least bringing it up, and then complicating it even more with gentifying, which is it's a little bit more nuanced, because it's people from the community. The young people go out, become professionals, but then they want to come back. They want to come back because they care for the community, but they still end up raising the prices. So is there a right answer? No, but I mean, that's the struggle, right? You struggle between beautifying your space, but is it at the cost of displacing people that no longer can afford to live there?
Well, that the whole thing with Starbucks, that's I didn't know that was real. There is data that shows that when a Starbucks opens up in a neighborhood, property values raise like a certain amount of a certain percentage. Yeah, it's common fact.
Yeah, you should threaten the people here. Hey, don't mess around. I'll open a Starbucks.
Actually, something I really wanted to ask you the moment I saw the show, because I was just really curious about this. Did you take any type of culinary training?
I was gonna say, you have to cook for us. I mean, tremendo plato you were making on there. Yeah.
With the chopping, I do, but it comes from like playing drums when I was little. Like I feel like I syncopation. But no, we took like a little workshop to make sure that the placement of the hands and the thing were right. Okay. We talked to some chefs and stuff. And there were people on site when we were doing all the kitchen scenes. Mm-hmm. But that's it.
I was like, Carlito es cocinero.
I can see it.
You just have to buy it.
I can see it. Well, I did.
Yeah,
I did.
Good.
So obviously, a really big triumph for Gentefied is that, it's a Latin show, and it's bilingual, and it's on Netflix. Mm-hmm. So what in terms of Netflix, how do you feel this has been in terms of progress? Because I know the first was One Day at a Time, and that kind of came out of nowhere, the success of One Day at a Time, and now we have another one, Gentefied.
Another show actually came out, The Expanding Universe of Ashley
Garcia. That's right. Yeah, I went on my blog.
Went on my blog, blew up.
Yeah.
And that's a show that's technically for teens, but people have just devoured it.
Yeah.
And shout out to them, because it's a very good show. I mean, you think it like, so that's what I like when you watch a show. You're like, oh, this is gonna be a teen show. It is, but there's also so many other things that are happening, and you just get swept up in it. Swept up. Cut it. Hey guys, remember to edit this part when I say swooped, and just swept up.
What other, because this is the type of nitty-gritty stuff I love to ask actors. What other research did you do for the role? Because especially like, you're Puerto Rican, tú eres Boricua, and, you're playing, a young Mexican. Like how...
Well, I've been doing research for 15 years, because I've been here. When I say here, I've been in LA for so long. I've been absorbing that. And I worked at LATV, which was, it's basically... Sure. Mexican, predominantly Mexican American vibe that the show had, and I think MTV Tres was try to be more like bi-coastal in that sense. But I've been absorbing this culture for so long that I really feel a part of it. Not only the fact that I look 100% Mexican.
That's true. Tienes un poco de pinta. Yeah.
No, un poquito. No, like I.
Well, the coif was a little bit higher.
Dude, everything, and that's fine. Like I go to Puerto Rico, and nobody believes that I'm Puerto Rican, and that's fine. And that's I feel like I have I'm able to kind of infiltrate these two spaces. And I mean, at first, you're frustrated because you want to be where you're from. But then I realized that it's like a superpower. It's like a gift to be able to do that, and to genuinely, like, I feel like as people of color, like us, we should be able to tell our own stories with authority, and that's why I think Gentefied works. The people in charge, not just the actors, everybody that's making the show, have complete authority of telling the story.
Well, America
Ferrera
is the executive producer.
She's executive producer, and she directed the 2 episodes, 3 and 4, which you need to watch.
I love it. Esta con las puyas, I'm telling you, coño.
Oh, come on, Carlos. It just came out. Give us a little bit more time.
Se ve que we're friends, right? We're friendly.
Like if
if
the
not,
show's been out on
no,
Netflix for 6 months.
No pressure.
You know.
Wow, this came out 48 hours ago. I can't believe it.
you have binged all of it already. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, no. She's amazing. She's amazing. She directed the 2 episodes. She was a producer, and she also had a little cameo. So, man, she's so good. And honestly, and I keep telling people, it's the first time I've had a director we've mind melded when we were working on the show. There was one time where she came over, and this is the story that I like to tell. She came over to give me a note, and before she opened her mouth, I went, da 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 da. This is what you want? And she was like, yep. And it was like, and I remember thinking, wow, that doesn't really happen often. So it was really special to work with her. Obviously, she's an actress. Also, so I think she definitely knows how to and she comes super prepared. So I love working with her.
It's funny because she's one of these people that she's quite the trailblazer, you know, because, I mean, she started off, in the Ugly Betty series?
No, she started with The Real Women Have Curves.
She started Women Have Curves, and she started on Gotta Kick It Up.
And
Disney Channel original movie.
Wow.
The Traveling Pants.
Sisterhood
The
of
movie, I
Traveling
always get the
Pants.
name wrong.
He messes up
I
that
combine
name
like
so,
That's fine.
so hard. It's wonderful.
So
The Yaya Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Literally what he does. Yes, you just did it. Like almost exactly.
Yes, like I'm not kidding. But she's quite the trailblazer because she has her own production company.
Yeah.
And she's, getting Latinos in all these roles and doing all these projects. I mean, she's quite the superwoman.
She's doing it. She's obviously killing it in Superstore, and she's also directed in that's the career, right? That's what you want to be in a position of influence, but also to be able to work in those spaces. It's a privilege.
Powers for good.
Yeah, exactly. Because as you know, the industry, there's a lot of privilege, and it's good to talk about these things because it boils down to realizing that a lot of times, like for myself, that's the best thing about Gentefied, which is contrary to what people should say about actors. Like when you're an actor, you should be able to have range, right? You're supposed to play all these roles and lose yourself in these roles. Well, that's a privilege because for a lot of us, we don't get that opportunity. So the fact that I get to play somebody that's like me is such a blessing to a degree that a lot of people don't even realize. And the fact that people have responded so positively just shows you that that's 100% true. Like when they see somebody, it doesn't have to be a crazy. So let us all focus on just being ourselves and not being somebody that the industry wants us to be, which is a very myopic, through a very myopic lens of what we're allowed to do and be in the industry. To play these characters that are fully, completely, fully fleshed. What's the word? Fully fleshed.
Fully fleshed, fully formed.
Fully formed, fully fleshed.
Fully realized.
There's a lot of flesh. What I'm trying to say, there's a lot of flesh. Look, it's fleshy.
Fulfilled?
It is Netflix. It's
Yeah.
Netflix. So you can have flesh.
Sure. Yeah, there's no. They're not scared about it. So I feel like let's tackle this and then let's get crazy and do all these characters. Let's have range. But right now, I feel like it's a great moment to show just us, and it works spiritually because it's also sending out a message that we're enough. A lot of times, minorities have to be geniuses or experts or just to be considered normal, right? And what we're saying also is like, no, just you as a person, you working at a taco shop, you working at a library, that's good enough, and it's just as valuable a story to tell than anything else.
Yeah. No, and our hats off to Netflix that they're taking a chance with these shows. They're doing a lot more than regular network TV television. Yeah. When One Day at a Time came out, that's a Cuban family.
Sure.
We're Cuban, and we're like, man, they nailed like those small little details. From the macaroni, the butter tin that you put the frijoles in to all that. Like that's something that is very relatable. So with your show as well, it's like they're really going out there and doing
the details.
It's authentic stories.
But it's not a coincidence because the showrunner Gloria Calderon-Kellett, or is it?
Yeah,
that's
Calderon-Kellett,
obviously knows what she's talking about.
Yeah.
She has complete authority over that story, and you can tell.
Yeah, we interviewed her in our first season, and she says that I believe she said that most of a lot of the storylines were just based on her growing up, with her grandmother and all that stuff. But again, these are, whether it's One Day at a Time or Gentefied, these are authentic stories.
Our stories.
It's authentic stories, because they could have so easily, jumped in the minority stereotype bandwagon.
Totally.
And they did, and they're telling these authentic stories, which is ending up in great television that everybody can enjoy.
And also, we're getting away with just something as simple, and it's interesting to see how people react to it. The dialogue. It could be jarring for some people, but do you know why? Because I feel like they really went out of the way to make the dialogue as authentic as possible, which does not sound like how people talk in cable, which does not sound how people talk in network. So you could either be like, I'm not used to that, or you could be like, oh my God, I am completely. That's why it either works for you or it doesn't. If you're used to a certain thing, which is fine, which is also fine, we're not judging. Then you're not, it's going to be maybe a little tough for you to grab onto it. But that's why I think the show works on so many levels. It works on so many levels. As an actor, it works for actors to know that they can play themselves. As a story, it shows people that they can have value. And even the creators, the Marvin and Linda's story is such a beautiful story of them just coming together and creating the show, a digital series first, then getting it on Sundance, then getting bought by Netflix, then doing the show, and then for it to come out and to have this kind of reception within the 48 hours, which, not everybody has seen it, of course.
Yeah, it's true, because as of this, it just came out on Friday. And this is, we're recording on Monday.
Yeah, so don't give us
Friday. So and you're already number 6 within their top 10 shows.
Yeah, we literally trending today, top 6, which is something new that they just started, which is great. We're not.
They started just for you guys. No,
that's amazing.
That's great.
That's amazing. Wait, you guys at Spanish Aqui are killing it. You're on this. Tony.
And Tony also is in here.
Tony playing a white banker, according to the New York Times.
Because Tony. That a couple of weeks ago he was on our show. When he was down in Miami, we recorded an episode, and he kept this like a secret. That we talked about a lot of stuff.
He didn't bring it up.
And Oscar is in those 3,500 those H&R Block commercials.
He's in 2 or 3 commercials over the holiday break. It's insane.
Yeah. And let's face it, without Riza,
we wouldn't be here.
You guys would not. That is she is the oil on the well-oiled machine. Without her,
she's la jefa. She's a showrunner, man.
We're really happy that all of you guys are doing so well, and the show. To our listeners, we can't stress enough to watch Gentefied. It's a great show, but most of all, you're going to be supporting authentic and real stories of the Latin community, which are the stories that need to be heard. So we can't stress enough to go out and check out this show. And
I'm just gonna say, again, having met you, and and again, you're part of our little world now, right? And it's we could not be happier, prouder of your success, and it's one thing to be we're proud of Latino success in general, but to see somebody who we actually know, who you just give off good vibes, and there's just something positive about you, and you've earned this. You've more than earned it, and you know what, dude. All the happiness, congratulations in the world, and having listened to your mom on Spanish Aqui Presents, I can only imagine how happy she must be right now for you.
That's why we told you we feel we know you from obviously you guys meeting you before and hanging out with you, and through the podcast, it's it's Carlito,
It's hard not to feel like that. Yeah, I totally agree.
Oh yeah, and you're gonna come back on our show when you win an Emmy.
Sure.
Or
a Golden Globe. I think what's easier?
A Golden Globe.
What's easier to win?
An Alma Award.
SAG?
Why not? Whatever. When you guys get the Alma Award.
The Alma. It was the Elma Award.
The Elmo. Yeah. Yes. When you can count.
What is easier to win?
I'm thinking an Elmo Award.
A Golden Globe or an Emmy.
I love that question. What's easier to win, guys? Hey, seriously. What's I want to. If I was gonna win an award, which one do you think I should win?
Well, the Emmys of the Academy. Yeah. So I would go.
Well, the Golden Globe is only 40 people.
No, but I was saying Well, never mind. That's for him to answer.
Look, hey, let's cross that bridge
when we get there.
Let's cross that award bridge when we get there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Again, much success to you guys, and thank you so much for taking time out of your super duper busy schedule.
Thank you
to be with us. So thank you. And we're back.
I always do that. It happens in my head. Sometimes I let it out.
Carlos was a great interview. You know what I loved about Carlos, and you could tell that he's a professional. That he's very good on talking points.
Well, I mean, he was a host.
Yeah,
he was a host.
But you know what I mean?
And he's still a host because we're Spanish Aqui.
Yeah. But he's very good on talking points. He knows what to say. Like,
yeah. Keep it engaging. Keep it moving.
Yeah.
Keep it engaging.
Come
Keep
on,
it moving.
people.
Keep it going. Come on.
See, I was like, oh my god, this is one of the easiest interviews we've ever done.
It's
Like,
true.
We didn't have to pull things out.
No, at all. Él terminó de comer su salmón.
Yeah.
Y después
Because,
he sat down with us.
You know, a little behind the scenes. We love everybody who comes on the show and we interview. But some interviews are harder than others.
And again, he's been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
You know, so and he, as you heard, was a host. You know, in his previous life. Again, still a host on Spanish Aqui, and he gets it. He knows how to.
He's a professional.
A professional.
So anyway, so last Coke of the Desert. I'm a little
sodas.
thirsty.
Yes, it's time for our last sodas.
Soda. So I want to give my last soda. I think I may have given my last soda to her before.
People get thirsty.
Yeah, but I'm gonna give it to her again because we've met her. Hopefully one day we could get her on the show, and I freaking love her. My last soda is going to Ana Navarro.
Oh, okay. You know what? We may have given it to her, but
Yeah. We met Ana Navarro last year. We posted in here on our Instagram page, and we talked about it. She was great, but what I loved about her was that she's as like animated in person as she is.
She don't give a fuck.
You know, yeah.
She is Ana Navarro.
It's what you see on TV is not a character.
Right.
That is
Ana
her.
Navarro. And
So
again, and we met her at a book launch party for Burger Beast, so you couldn't be any further removed from
and she
the
was
spotlight.
She was great. And Anna, you have an open invitation to come on the
you
show
want, my love.
because we will love her. Anyway, so in reference to El Perro Comunista, the Bernie Sanders.
Love it. I love it. It's
Perro Comunista.
It's never gonna get old.
So Anna has a little bit of a salty tongue on Twitter, which we totally love.
That's why we love her.
Okay, so this and oh my god, and you know it was so bad because when this whole Bernie thing Sanders happened, I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait to watch it on The View. Like, you don't understand. Like being such a big fan of The View, when something big happens, I'm like, oh my god, The View can't come on fast enough. Actually, they spoke about it on The View on Tuesday, and I got to the office late. I'm like, I'm not waiting till
One of the perks when you own the office.
I'm like, I'm not waiting till I get home later at night. I am watching
This
The
is
View
live, baby.
now. Anyway, but Anna's not on The View on
During the week.
She's always on Fridays. So I'm like, damn it, Anna's not going to be there today.
That was my first question to you.
But she did tweet, and this is her tweet, and I absolutely love it.
Very active on Twitter.
I was born in Nicaragua. My parents live there. My husband was born in Cuba.
I didn't know she was married.
Yeah, she got married a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Recently. The Castros and Ortegas are corrupt, anti-American, murderous thugs. They jail, kill, torture, starve, beat, and persecute political dissidents while enriching themselves. There's no fucking bright side, period.
Ana Navarro.
I was like, that was so her, so perfectly
I'm
said.
gonna go ahead and say something. The views expressed by Ana Navarro are pretty damn close to the views expressed by Pero. Let me tell you.
The views expressed by Ana Navarro are the views expressed by Pero.
Pretty
Let me
damn
tell you,
word
Pero,
for
let me tell you
word.
Productions LLC.
Yes, pretty damn word for word. Pretty damn word for word.
So, you know, I love it. I love that she kind of cursed. You know, no filter. Say it like it is. Because when you're talking about perro comunistas, you have to say it like it is.
No argument for me. I mean, what am I going to say? Like, no, you have to consider your words? Like, no, fuck that. Fuck that.
So this soda's for you, Anna.
Yes, Anna. And again, we hopefully one day you will join us in person and we can regale you with sodas live. So my last soda actually goes to a it goes to a small little company you may have heard of.
TCBY yogurt.
No, do they still exist?
I think so.
Is it like one right next to that last Blockbuster in Alaska?
Yeah.
No, it's a little company you may have heard of, Netflix.
Oh, Netflix.
You may have heard of them.
Oh, yes.
Once or twice.
I have heard of them.
Once or twice.
I think they're in the streaming business.
They might mail DVDs.
Yeah, I think they mail DVDs.
I think they mail DVDs, yeah. But no, the reason I'm giving my last soda to Netflix, it's kind of touching on something that we discussed more toward the end of Carlos's interview, which is in the last couple of years, I've noticed that they've made a very strong, concentrated effort in terms of Latino representation. Gentefied, the ever-expanding universe of Ashley Garcia, which is executive produced by Mario Lopez, stars Giancarlos Canela, Cristela Alonso. There's On My Block.
Of course, One Day at a Time.
There's One Day at a Time. There's La Casa de las Flores. There's...
Is La Casa de las Flores, Veronica Castro, is that an original Netflix production?
Yes.
Okay.
That is an original Netflix production. So,
because I know it's shown on Netflix, but I thought maybe they acquired
one of those international things. Yeah. No, that is a Netflix production. So, I think it speaks to their recognition that the Hispanic, Latino, Latinx, Spanish-speaking market, however you consider yourself, it's not just about putting dollars against it, because the reality of it is that at the end of the day, Netflix is not advertiser based, so they're not making money off of it from that perspective. So I have to assume that a big part of it is just them realizing representation matters.
Yeah, they actively wanted to be, inclusive.
Right. A representation actually matters. And, for that, I know it's very easy with big corporations to dismiss as like, oh, that's just them paying lip service and what have you. But I think, again, in a case like Netflix, where they're not trying to appeal to advertisers, so it's not like they're making money off of it, quote unquote. I definitely applaud it. And they're giving an opportunity for these voices to be heard. And I think if more of us stopped to listen to each other's voices, we'd probably be a little bit better.
Good for Netflix.
Yes, sir. And so, good for Ana Navarro.
Anna and Netflix.
Anna and Netflix. Maybe she should be on Netflix.
That's a nice combo.
She should have a show on Netflix.
I know, right? The Anna, I'd watch that.
Hell yeah.
So, if you want, I'm telling you, if you want the Ana Navarro's greatest hits, look up Ana Navarro on CNN.
When she starts filing her nails.
When she's filing her nails. Amazing. There's some guy there, I think he's a Republican, talking like rah, rah, and she's like filing her nails. And she's like, Anna, what are you doing? She's like, I'm filing my nails because I'm just so over and bored with what you're saying, or something she said like that. And there's another one that she's like throwing popcorn. It's great.
She's wonderful. Again, Anna, please join us. We will go to where you are. We will literally, I will show up anywhere at a Shake Shack.
You know what would be great?
Don't care.
Since she's Nicaraguan, to interview her like a freaking novillo, because eating churrasco
or like a is it fritanga monimbo?
No, it's Ana Navarro. We're not gonna take her to the fritanga.
But she probably loves fritanga.
I'm sure she does, but we gotta take her to Los Rancho or Novillo.
No, we're gonna keep it real with Ana.
The steak tips with the jalapeno sauce.
We're gonna keep it real with Ana.
Actually, you know what? I love Nicaraguan food. Well, I don't.
You're not a huge fan of Cuban food.
Nicaraguan food, their rice.
So good. Gallo pinto, right?
I'm sure they put crack in that thing.
Probably.
Like when I go to a Novillo or Los Rancho, they serve you the rice from the big platter they bring, and it's total silence. The man starts putting it in my plate.
Just say when.
I'm not saying when anytime soon.
You're gonna run out of rice before I say when.
Déjame plato aquí.
Total. ¿Pa qué lo dejaste que llevar para atrás? And it's just gonna be in your way.
Anyway, we hope everybody listened, laughed, and learned. This was a full-packed episode.
It was a full-packed episode.
We hope everybody listened, laughed, and learned. And remember to grab your pastelito, your croqueta, and your jupiña. And thank you for joining us. And that was episode 99. Our last double-digit episode.
Oh my God, we're in the triple digits.
We're in the triple digits. So, episode 100 next. So, thank you, everybody, again, for listening. And have a great weekend and Pero Friday and Happy Friday.
Yes. Bye, mi gente. Pero Let Me Tell You is co-hosted by Darian Borges and Ismaeliano, produced by Ismaeliano, and our theme, Pero Let Me Tell You Freestyle, is composed by Michael Angelo Lomlaplex, the official gay guy. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes.